Jack had never been a working man. In the small farming town of Millfield, everyone called him the lazy old fellow, the one who sat under the big oak tree in a worn rocking chair, staring into the distance while the world moved around him. He spent his days dreaming out loud and planning a future he never chased. He talked endlessly about plans that never left his lips. "One day I will open a shop," he would say. "One day I will buy land and cattle. I will make money without breaking a sweat." But that day never came. Neighbors stopped laughing. They only looked at him with pity. His wife, Margaret, sighed and said plainly, "Life does not run on dreams, Jack. Life runs on work." He shrugged lightly. "Someday I will find my way." Years rolled by. Life grew harder. One cold evening, his grandson Tommy, barefoot and thin, tugged at his sleeve and asked softly, "Grandpa, is there any bread?" Margaret opened the kitchen cupboard. It was completely empty. Jack stared at the floor. His throat tightened with shame. Dreams could not be eaten. Ideas could not fill a hungry stomach. That night, Jack could not sleep. The next morning, heavy with shame, he walked to a nearby farm and offered himself as a day laborer. The work was brutal. The summer sun burned his skin raw. His back bent lower every hour. His hands cracked and bled. Sweat ran into his eyes like salt water. In the middle of the cornfield, he whispered bitterly, "This feels like chains." At sunset, he came home silent. Margaret placed a plate of baked beans and 2 tortillas on the table. Nothing more. Tommy wrapped small arms around him and asked warmly, "What did they give you today, Grandpa?" Jack looked at the few bills in his hand and said quietly, "It is not much, but it is something real." But the money never stayed. Dr. Bills took it, medicine took it, groceries took it. A few coins remained by week's end. Week after week, the pay came and went. The roof still leaked when rain fell. Hunger remained a permanent house guest. One afternoon inside the village general store, Jack overheard farmers talking over coffee. "The secret is saving," one man said, slapping the counter. "If you save, you are safe." Those words buried themselves deep inside Jack that evening. That night, he found a large glass mason jar and hid it under the bed. Each week, after buying only bare necessities, he dropped in whatever coins remained. The soft clink against glass made him smile. It felt like hope taking a real shape. One afternoon, Tommy crawled under the bed and found the jar. "Grandpa, what is this?" Jack pulled him close and said proudly, "That is our tomorrow, son." Saving was far from easy. Jack stopped buying new boots. Even when his old pair split apart, he kept walking. Food became simpler. Meals were eaten slowly to make them last. One evening, Margaret could no longer stay quiet. "What good is saving if we go to bed hungry?" Jack did not look up. "Someday you will understand." Months passed. The jar filled slowly. One bright Saturday, they went to the farmer's market. Jack placed the money on the grain seller's table. 3 sacks of corn, he said proudly. The seller counted and shook his head. Prices went up. This buys 1.5 sacks. Jack froze completely. Money loses its value, the seller said simply. On the walk home, the jar felt hollow and heavy at once. That night, Jack poured all the money on the table and counted again and again. It never grew. Tommy watched quietly and asked, "So what is the point of saving, Grandpa?" Jack had no answer for the boy. Dark days followed. He grew weaker. Food portions shrank. Some mornings felt like the walls were closing in. One gray morning, sitting on the front porch staring at nothing, Jack noticed his neighbors walking past. One woman carried a basket of eggs. Another man balanced bottles of fresh milk. They walked calmly, without fear. Then he remembered something Tommy had whispered weeks ago. "Grandpa, what if we bought some chickens?" This time, something clicked. This time, he listened. Jack took the last of the jar money and bought 6 thin, scraggly chickens. When he let them loose in the yard, Tommy burst out laughing and chased them in every direction. "We have an egg factory now, Grandpa," the boy shouted with pure joy. At first, the hens gave only 1 or 2 eggs a day. They ate some. They sold some at the end of the lane. With those dollars, Jack bought 1 more chicken. He started a small notebook, recording every egg, every sale, every penny. Every single egg mattered to the growing business. Slowly, the backyard filled with noise. Neighbors came knocking to buy fresh eggs. For the first time in his life, work felt genuinely good to Jack. One quiet afternoon, he sat on an overturned crate, holding a warm, brown egg in his rough palm, and said to Tommy, "This egg is worth more than a whole jar of coins, son. It feeds us today, grows tomorrow, and never loses its value." Tommy threw his arms around his grandfather. "So you are not the lazy old man anymore, Grandpa?" Jack smiled with wet eyes. "No, my child. I finally learned what I should have known 40 years ago." The mason jar stayed forgotten under the bed. When neighbors talked about saving money, Jack simply pointed to his busy chicken yard and said with a knowing smile, "Saving money is like holding water in open hands. It always slips away. Instead, make your money work, even if you start with just 1 small chicken." And that is how the man everyone called lazy discovered the greatest truth of his entire life. Never just save money. Make it grow.